fast.
It's fast. There's your basket, there's your list of products, there's your edit items. So yeah, and it's faster than. But see, that's my point about the cost of delay. Hello, Giovanni. We were just saying, where is this Giovanni? I have to send you a snotty SMS.
5 minutes late. Same Saturday, right?
Okay, I'm broadcasting now. I'm just sending you guys the link.
Don't worry, invoice. What's that word?
Network is not. Do you have access to your Slack? Code for YouTube.
Okay.
And that's still 10 minutes.
I have to come on the same channel as you,
On general, Kobus?
yeah, but you guys are on a
Where should
different
we-
whole network, so yeah,
Oh.
fair enough.
Okay. Because I can't seem to access my Slack. Maybe it's
Yeah,
using up all
download.
the. I think it's using up all the bandwidth.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to type it out?
Yeah, I'll let you know. So, youtube.com/watch question mark watch question mark v equals capital F Z T L 5 F A G capital A capital F A small h e capital A. I think I should use my modem because otherwise it won't start. Same issue. Okay, I'm just waiting for the link to be sent and then I'll start.
You're gonna sing for us in the meantime. Yep, sing us a song.
Yeah, I trust you can do it. So this is the link.
You select it, no? We set up the invites for these lightning talks. From Fundo or Catherine.
I think it was Catherine. Yeah.
Okay, just tell her not to do it 9 o'clock.
9:30 after.
9:30 afterwards.
Okay, so you can see it.
Yeah, well, it's becoming very blurry now.
Yeah, that's your. But another way, you English, so you don't need to.
And if it's true, send it to me. Don't worry, I'll kill it so we don't kill
Can we send it on the general Slack? Because I think girls no, someone else wanted to join in.
And probably.
Yeah.
You should really attend as well.
Did someone send it on the general Slack?
Someone's already replying. Where is it? You know, you can ask questions and stuff.
Yeah.
We're playing around with it the other day. The only problem is when we're presenting, we never really got anywhere near 480p. Is that just because your line speed or what?
Yeah, your line speed. And normally upload speed is much slower than download speed, so it's hard to broadcast.
Can only do so much.
Did anyone reply? Okay. I think we should probably start.
I think we should start.
Yeah.
I have to leave on time, so
Okay.
I don't want to miss this. Selfish.
Okay, cool.
It's also been done for meetings on time. Cool. Blow us away, Kolofelo.
Okay, cool. So today we'll be talking about UX design and the new Atajo-UI library. So basically, I'm just going to take you through general principles of UX design and some mobile patterns. And then finally, I'll go into the actual Atajo-UI. So to start with, so UX is based upon an understanding of technology being an enabler as opposed to being an end product. So basically we're saying a user wants something, they want to do something, and there's not one way of getting to it. So it's designing, playing around those different ways to get the best way possible. So normally as developers, you would think functionality first. So you think this person wants to users, then you make an end user function, but then you don't think of how best do you meet the business needs. So it sort of needs a bit of a paradigm shift before you get into it.
I think it's an important comment about a lot of things. We often see methodology as a means to an end. Like, you know, sure, we want to go agile and stuff, but that's what our end goal. Our end goal is to optimize and to become better at it. It's a means to an end. It's not an end in itself.
Yeah.
A lot of things we make a mistake. Oh, we want to, like we were talking about test-driven development now. It's not we want to do test-driven development because everyone else, that's our end goal. It's we want to become better at agile and lean and stuff like that. That's why we want to do it. So it's a very good say.
Yeah. So on that note, some fundamentals. So what's UX design? So it'll be safe to start by saying there's no generally accepted definition for UX design. Different people will say different things. But in general, it's designing for how the user will engage with the software. Well, in this case, because UX design can be for a product, it can be for anything, it doesn't have to be software. And so if you design how to engage, how the people engage with the software, then you're trying to design how they experience it. But ultimately, you don't have any control on how someone experiences it, which is why normally you use the whole agile approach. So you play around until you get the perfect engagement technique so that the person can have a good experience on the app. Another simpler way of looking at it is just design with the user in mind. So instead of saying, again, functionalities, you say, what about the user? Will the user find this easy to use? Will it be intuitive? Will it be usable? Okay, so just to break it down a bit more. So traditionally, there was something called human-computer interface when technology was still in its early days, when people were just thinking there's machine-to-machine communication, but then how do we get humans involved? But it was a bit more rudimentary than user experience design as it is now. So here, normally UX design is a bit confused with UI design, but UI design is just one facet. So UI is basically look and feel. So the colors, the sizes, the layout, and such things. And then again, back to the functionality idea, we get stuck on business analysis. So we think these are the business needs, then we run and then go do a product.
Help yourself, please.
Awesome. Okay. So another part of UX is behavioral psychology. So that's where you think of things like metaphor, how people relate to the natural world, and then you try and reuse those ideas. Even if it's not the natural world, it could be something which already exists. So for example, if you look at the calculator design, so on a computer, there's no need for you to have buttons. You can basically just have a textual input and then just basically do the same thing as a calculator. But because we've been conditioned to a normal handheld calculator, then you design an app which looks the same way because people are used to that sort of idea. And then usability and accessibility, that's a no-brainer. So you have to firstly make your app usable and make sure that a user can access the different functions. And then an important part is something called information architecture. So what you do here is saying you can have your database architecture and all that, but then you start looking at your information and say, which is the most important information and how do you categorize it? So I'll go into a bit more detail. For example, when you're using tabs, because with tabs you have limited space, then you have to think which is the relevant information and how do you position it. So here you look at things like frequency. So how likely is it that someone will use the thing quite frequent? And also impact. So how impactful is it? So for example, something like delete your account, you wouldn't just put it right in your face because it will be easy to access it and then delete everything. So you want to hide it and put it further away from the user. Okay, so there's something called Fitts law, and it has a funny equation. And basically what it says is that the bigger and closer something is to you, the faster it is to get to. So for example, when you design a car, you have a brake and a pedal. So you want to make the brake bigger because that's the more important thing. You'd rather press a brake easier than press the accelerator easier. So the same when you're designing software, you look at your different components and you decide how far do you put it away from the user and how big do you make it. So for example, in terms of desktop, the most useful thing is the contextual menu. So right click. So the right click is always 0 distance away from you because wherever it is, you can get to it. So that's why, so they use this equation to sort of justify it. The same way with taking up the whole space. That's also an application of Fitts law. Okay. By the way, if you guys have questions along the way, we can do that. Okay, so now I'm going to look into design patterns strictly for mobile. So traditionally, there are like 3 ways, but obviously we could have combinations of each. So the first one is dashboard. So dashboard would be you categorize everything, and then when you click on one link, and then it takes you to something, to a deeper level of whatever that category is. The next one is side menu. Side menu is nice because it's always accessible, and you can actually have more real estate than in other cases. And tabs, I'll go into a bit more details. I just want to go through the pros and cons. So the nice thing about a dashboard is that you can, again, going back to information architecture, you can group everything together and just put it into categories. And then everything will be quite intuitive. But the problem is that you have a deep hierarchy. So for example, let's say A is a list of, let's say this is a music app. Let's say this is genre, this will be hip hop, R&B. So I go into hip hop and then I get a list of all the artists. And then after that, I click on one artist and then get a list of all the songs. So the issue is, what if I'm now on hip hop and I'm playing some artist song and then I want to go to R&B and play another song? Problem is that I have to go back, and then come back to the dashboard and then go again to the next song. So in that way, that's why there's a problem with a deep hierarchy.
There's also a problem with your music selection.
Yeah.
It's very easy to solve. You just double click and swipe.
Just listen to classical.
Okay, so the nice thing about the side menu is that it solves the deep hierarchy problem. Because with the side menu, you can be as deep as possible, but then you just click the side menu and then you go to the next category. So in that way, people never get too lost in the app. But then the problem is it's not intuitive. So there's a saying which goes out of mind, out of sight. So side menu, normally it's collapsed. And if you don't see it, you don't know what it has to offer. So there was a study which was done between side menu and tabs, and then they found that when you use side menu, your user engagement actually halves. So people can use the side menu simply because you don't have the options in front of you. And if you don't know the app,
Sorry, can I ask?
Yeah.
Is that why you start seeing the side menus that sort of always visible but sits on the left?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. So then it's actually sort of a cheat because they're basically horizontal tabs or vertical tabs. So the tabs, by far the best choice. They are simple and accessible, and they also have, normally you'll have a name as well and an icon. So you could be, for example, think of Facebook, you could be deep in some post, but then you can easily jump to your messages or your friend requests or your notifications. But the problem is you have limited tabs. It's actually a good thing in a way because you don't want to give people too many options. So normally the maximum is 5 tabs. And what I'm gonna show you now is that sometimes if you need more tabs, then you'll have like a more tab and then you put the other stuff inside there. So any questions here?
Like sub tabs.
Subtabs. So yeah, normally you would do that. So for example, if something belongs to one category, but then you can put it in 2 distinct ways. So for example, if you on iOS and you look at your phone app, if you go to your call history, it will have all and missed. So that's because they still fall under one category, but then you can further subdivide. Have sort of like nested tabs. It's only in certain instances.
So they would be like 2 bars there.
So normally you
right,
put it at the top.
So you go to missed calls, you go to calls, and then you've got at the top that tab to switch.
Mm.
I
Okay,
think
so-
it's clumsy if you slide it.
I guess the previous one also depends on what platform you use. Because there are intricacies between iOS and Android.
Yeah. Actually, I should have put a slide for that. Thanks for mentioning it.
Material versus hidden versus not.
And actually, as a side note, so Material and the new iOS design, so they're both sort of flat design. So traditionally, you had something called skeuomorphism, where you were trying to map the real world directly to the digital world. So your buttons would be rounded, but then nowadays that notion is gone because the new generation doesn't have a metaphor to relate to because they've been using digital either way. So there's no need to then make it look like something which they've never seen. There's no need to relate the two. So now we're looking at simplistic design.
It's like that joke. It's not such a good joke, but it's quite relevant that kid that sees a floppy disk and says, look there, a 3D printed safe.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. Okay.
Really asked a question on the Slack channel. He said, will Atajo-UI have a lower tab control now?
What? And
What he
what
means
tab?
is that bottom, will we
Yeah.
have that now?
We do have it.
Yeah, it's listening.
Oh.
Okay. Because inside.
So I
Yeah,
think we're getting there, just telling that you're going to get there, eh? Getting to the Atajo-UI.
Atajo-UI. What did I want to say?
Question.
Yeah.
Would it be a good idea to use a hybrid of two different types? So,
Yes.
for example, you have the dashboard with the tabs at the bottom of the dashboard, thereby you being able to see the natural categorization, and then still you've got your easy accessibility between your tabs or your different, like you said, things, etc.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the stuff in Atajo HTML5?
Yes.
It's all hybrid, right?
Yeah.
So theoretically, if you really wanted to, you could set a switch in there that'll flip between the designs based on your CSS.
It's actually that's actually what happens.
Okay.
To go back to the other question, so normally, remember I gave the example of tabs. If you need more than 5 tabs, you'll have a more tab. The other way of doing it is having a side menu as well. So you then put all your extra content in the side menu. So normally, with a lot of apps, you will see a mix of the two. So I'm gonna now do some quick case studies. But before that, just a note. So normally, I started with this slide. So UX actually grown more among startups than enterprise because of the simple reason that with enterprise, normally we have a relationship with the client. So we sit with the client and then we'll design for functionality. And then later we just give them a manual on how to use it. So UX design is taking the other approach and saying, what's the best way to make the user engage with the app? So that's why, for example, if I'm going to go through the apps now, you'll see that you'll hardly find any app with just a side menu, almost always. So I'm going to pass my phone. Okay, I just have to make sure that the other guys see the screen as well. And how do I do that? Okay, cool. So you should be seeing the same thing as us. Okay, so I just want to go through a couple of apps. So I'm going to start with Facebook. So if you look at Facebook again, you'll see that it's quite a nice joke. You have tabs, and then they have a more tab. That's where you put in all your other content. And then a note on information architecture again, you see that the logout is the last button, and you have to go to more first to get to it. But the most useful thing, which is where people spend most of their time, will be the newsfeed. So that's why it's the first tab, and when you open the app, it's the first tab which is open. Okay, and then WhatsApp. WhatsApp is the same thing. So they're using tabs. And the other thing which I'll go into more detail is contextual buttons. So for example, here, if you have a list of favorites, it makes sense to have the plus sign at the top to add a new favorite, because that relates to your current tab. Same with calls, it makes sense to have a call button there. Same with contacts, add a new contact. Same with chat, start a new chat. And again, I go to settings, account, delete my account. That's how far I have to go to reach that part. So the first step in designing an app would be what are the most useful things, and how do I position them. Okay, another one I wanted to show you is Hangouts. So the Hangouts app is using a hybrid. So you have your tabs at the bottom, and you'll have your side menu for all your extra things. And then there's the Stay Core app. So the Stay Core app is using a dashboard. So the example I was giving, so let's say I want to see what time this movie plays. Then I can see the time. So now I want to see the next movie. So I first have to go back once, go back again, and then only then can I then access the next movie. So this means if it was, for example, a side menu, then I could quickly jump back to a new category. But then with dashboard, you have this sort of deep hierarchy, which sometimes can be annoying if your app is really complex. And then I'm going to show you Inbox. So Inbox is quite different. So in some cases, you'd find that your app has one primary function, and then you don't need tabs. You don't need to. So you need to put all your attention on one screen. So which is what Inbox does. And then for any extra things, you just put a side menu for it. Okay. Yeah, I think that's now. Okay. Let's get the Hangouts thing back again. Okay. I'll show you Twitter, but it's quite the same. Okay, so as I said, quick fix is rather go with tabs. It tends to make things easier for people. So again, the note about enterprise. So sometimes we could meet with a client, and then we could be convinced that the way to go is side menu, but then later the actual users might have a problem with it because they find it hard to use the app. So it's better to make the app as easy to use as possible. Again, to finalize on tabs, the nice thing about tabs is that they're always available and they don't take too much of your screen space. So side menu, when you open it, takes too much of the side of the real estate, and at the same time you have to know to open it, and some people don't know to open it. And side menu, you have to know the app because you have to memorize that these are all the options that you have. With tabs, you can always see all the options. Okay, so Atajo-UI. Okay, so basically it's based on Ionic. And for now, they're just a couple of namespace changes. So if you look at Ionic code, the tags, which is HTML code, would be Ion content, for example. We'll have AUI content. And then all your Angular services from $Ionic to $Atajo-UI. And general JavaScript service will be Ionic to lowercase Atajo-UI. So basically for now, it's basically a mirror of, or a fork of Ionic as is, but then I'm starting to add a couple of changes, which I'll go into. So in a nutshell, as the question was asked, in the end, it's just JavaScript and CSS. So JavaScript to control things like your history, keep track of clicks and all that, and CSS for all the styling. And Ionic normally works with Cordova. So what happens is when you create a Cordova app, then a class will be added, CSS class. And there will be a class for Windows, a class for Android, and a class for iOS. And with Atajo-UI is that you then specify all those styles and then reflected on the correct platform.
Are you using Google for your click tracking?
So yeah, if so, we have plugins for that. Yeah, there's a plugin for that. So, but then that doesn't have to do directly with the UI. So this is just the UI element. And then the note about tabs. So you know that with tabs, normally on using material, tabs will be on the top, and then with iOS, tabs are at the bottom. So since Ionic has, then you can give the different styles to the different tabs. I'm gonna start by showing you an Atajo-UI app.
Well, this was a good question. So we used to have a card engine, but we tried to build our own UI engine, but I think it's a bad idea because, you know, why not leverage somebody who's done this before? But with the card engine, we could quite easily plug in Google Analytics to say it's on this card, you know, because it's a rigid framework. So I don't know how we do it. I see our current app also posted, our headless app posted to analytics. I don't know if we've made it automatic. How did you do it? You did it on the SC.
Yeah, you have to manually add your hooks where you want. If Atajo-UI matures, we can start doing that automatically again, maybe for like tabs. Everyone's going to be using tabs, so we can automatically get into the tabs. Just a note on the plugins, I would prefer you not installing a plugin directly and using it directly. Tomorrow it changes. There's quite a lot of work involved in making sure that it will work. And which is exactly the reason we wrap it in Atajo.whatever APIs. So we can switch out plugins without affecting 50 apps running on it. So the interface remains constant and the plugins can change. But yeah, there is a analytics API already, and you can just call events on it wherever you feel like it.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
That Ionic that you've changed to AUI, is the reason for doing that is because the tools actually use IntelliSense Ionic and change IntelliSense.
So the reason is that we the Ionic repo, so we're not using Ionic per se. It's just based on Ionic, so we're making our own changes, so hence it has to be different.
What tools are you referring to? Your
Sorry.
so we must maybe look into music. I'm sure you can load a template. Normally those things you can, we can take the Ionic template and we can
Oh. Then can I borrow your charger, please? Do you know how to zoom on?
Good.
Do you know how to zoom on this thing? On Sublime.
OnePlus, eh?
OnePlus.
We ask, is Angular still in the picture along with Ionic?
Yeah. So Ionic is an Angular project.
Yes, I think it maybe means material.
Yeah. It's in there.
Not just let's see, an Ionic material that Colifella can maybe look at putting into Atajo-UI. It's just a bunch of CSS, really.
Yeah.
I think our conclusion is material. The material that we're using is too heavy for mobile.
Angular.
Yeah, it's for desktop. Yeah.
So we find it too heavy, and we find this far more responsive. You see that your clicks, it's not this the nonsense we used to do. We have to do all kinds of weird
To it.
then there's a question. I know it's possible to use only the CSS organic and include other libs like React. I mean, React is a big question that's starting to come up as well when I talk to other people. Are we going to include React, or what's the? We have no plans. We say we have no plans. We don't have to always say, "Yo, no, this is about React. We're gonna do this." If it's not in your next 2-3 month window, then it's not.
Yeah, no, it's not. So the nice thing is that we have control of the JavaScript and the CSS, and you can do all those transitions without the use of React. Okay.
React is good with server-side rendering, which is not kind of in our scope, I suppose. You don't want the mobile app rendering on the server. And the Flux design pattern, you can implement without using Flux. It's more methodology than a library.
This is worse, right?
This was.
Okay. Okay, I'll have to quickly switch. Okay, so this is the Ionic, some of the documentation. So normally for us, we worry about things like brand colors of whoever client that we're dealing with. So there's this notion of utility colors. So these are the colors which come with Ionic. And since it's not direct CSS, it's Sass, then you can change what they are and then compile some CSS. So these are the colors. So there's a file. So if you start using Atajo-UI, there's a file called colors override under the SCSS. And then basically you'll say, I'm working with SAB, so I'll change this yellow to the SAB gold. So I'll change it here.
Is this Atajo-UI repo?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, normally, unless you want to do fancy things, this is the only file you'll touch. You'll just change the colors and everything else will be the same. And then there are some generator tasks. So if you've used Atajo client, it takes a bundle, which can be JavaScript and CSS or one of the other. So in our case, okay, we need to move this to this side. Oh, I'll have to zoom again. Okay, so I'm using Gulp. So there's a task called client package. And basically what it does, it compiles your Sass and then generates some CSS, and then it will generate a folder which is compatible with Atajo client. And basically just take that file and then you use it in your project.
Sorry, what does the Gulp do? It generates CSS?
Yeah, so it generates, let me just show you the file that it generates. Okay, it keeps opening this side, okay. So it'll generate a JSON file, which looks like this. And this is how Atajo client works at the moment. And inside it will have the two files, the CSS and the JavaScript. And if you look at the size, it's a bit big, 2.7 megabytes. So normally what you do, you add the release flag So the release flag will then minimize all the files. And this is part of the reason why in the end the app will be much more responsive. You'll see how small it will get now.
This is compiled in with the app, so it won't be remote loaded.
Yes. Okay, so now if we look at the JSON again, so there's a min and min. And if you look at the file, it was 2.7, now it's 710 kilobytes. So basically your app will be that small if you don't have other things, which you will have. So this will have all the tab styles, all the site navigation, all the icons. So also, in terms of icons, there are plans to create our own icon set using ionicons.
Moving away from Font Awesome.
Font Awesome is bad.
Wow.
That's quite bad.
It's not so awesome.
So the thing with Font Awesome is that the icons don't line up. So sometimes an icon will be on the right, on the left, or something so. And it's not customizable. But it's good for a quick fix.
We use
No, we thought Font Awesome was awesome.
it's amazing.
But if Taylor tells us it's bad.
Is everything still running? Just say for
Are you using
Use it forever.
version 2 or version 1 of Ionicons?
version 2.
Sorry, that.
Which one?
The provider just the second one just restarted.
Can you just explain to me why one is better than the other? They both just
Okay, so so in terms of UI design, Font Awesome, sometimes the icons are not lined up. So normally a font icon should be the same thing as a font. So you have things like kerning and spacing of the font, and it has to be aligned to the baseline. So with Font Awesome, sometimes you'll find an icon being on the left or too low, and then sometimes your final UI doesn't look that great. That's the only reason. And you can't tweak it.
And there's a question.
Now, and there's a question. Is it only with CSS changes that Gulp says has to make?
So it depends if she's talking about Gulp says on Atajo-UI. Because on Atajo-UI, you generate code you should leave on the app, so you'll never change it.
Okay.
But in terms of on your provider, it will be for CSS only. Because SAS is a pre-compiler for CSS.
SAS is in the next provider, yes.
Yeah. Is it running?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then Louis wants to know if it scrolls.
Yes.
This is our classic comment. Scrolling.
Yes, it scrolls quite well. That's why I'm gonna try and open up my app, the Claims app, and then we'll look at some of the controls and how responsive it is.
Okay, so this Onyx font thing is quite a, it's a bit of a for us.
So I don't think we should spend that much energy on it. So the ideal way would be to generate our own icon set. So things using SVG and then create our own font. And that will be much more useful so we can get our designers to create custom fonts and then it can be used in the app.
You probably want to create one for clients, depending on their CR.
Yeah, sometimes. Which is why it's better to have it, because currently you would have to use an image and then it doesn't really work well with the other icons.
Louis says he doesn't mind either way. He says Font Awesome doesn't have a Martini glass. I also haven't seen Font Awesome with a boat. The boat is quite cool. Anyway.
But then it's actually quite a limited icon set. If I were to choose the best icon set at the moment, it's the material icons. They have quite a large repertoire.
Louis makes another very valid point. Font awesome, looks great. Facebook, Twitter, you know, all this YouTube icon, you know, it's not like. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Let's not make it really small.
Just checking out my. So these are the material icons, and it has quite a big icon set. And the nice thing about this set, if you download it, it gives you the SVG, so you can actually change the icons and make new icons based on them. I actually have it, and that's what I've been doing sometimes.
And then you move it into your own project. So you
Yeah.
almost copy it.
Yes. So you'll see that it will have SVG and design or production. And I'll just open one of these. Just the other people can't see what I'm doing. But so this is the icon. I can change it. I can play around with it. Okay. Okay, so I was trying to see if I can run my app. Yeah. So in the meantime, are there any questions?
Icons follow the client.
Oh, there we go. Is there?
Icons follow the client. When you add to the base provider.
Yeah, the idea is that you should be able to add to the base provider. Okay, so I'm gonna switch back to my phone. There we go. So this is okay, let me show the other people there as well. Is it 2 minutes? Okay, so this is the Claims app, and it's using Atajo-UI. So you'll see how responsive it is in a moment. So you have things like toggles. As you can see, it's quite responsive. So I'm gonna log in.
That's an iPhone 5.
Yeah, this is an iPhone 5. And remember the note about tabs. So here, this is a Claims app. So when doing my information architecture, I thought the most important thing is to create a claim, because normally if you open the app, that's what you'd want to do. And then the next thing would be to check your status. So that will be your history. Oh, flip, I'm trying to click on my laptop. Okay. So this is my history. And the nice thing about this is that the delay you will have is actually loading the data, not loading the UI. Because in previous versions, we had problems loading the actual UI, and then that will make the screen funny before it actually loads.
So now that's all on device and all you.
So that's 710 kilobyte, that's all that it's using.
And how you passing your data now? Jason?
Yeah, yeah.
We have an API for real-time calls and syncs. And so Werner will present the API in the next session, so you can see how it all.
Would be approvals. You can see that this is the things that I have to approve. And then again, more. So you'll see that the last thing would be logout, and it's spaced out on its own, and it has a different color. Is that with important actions, you need to have an extra call out to make sure that you are happy. So there was one app I was using yesterday, I think it was Pinterest. So I clicked on the logout button and it just logged me out, and it could have been by mistake. So such things shouldn't be done. So this is what you'd rather do. So you click
More
on.
embarrassing that you admit using Pinterest.
I was testing it out.
How many recipes have you done?
Okay. So again, this is one of the tools in Atajo-UI. This is called an action sheet. And it's quite impressive that all this is CSS, and it actually matches the actual native one. and you can play around with colors, obviously. And I'm gonna come back here and show you swipe actions. So sometimes an action or an item can have certain actions associated with it. So I can swipe to the left and then I have the primary actions. So they're submitting my claim. And again, this is a bit of overkill because I had to do 3 things to make sure that I submit, but then it sort of makes sense in this case because you don't want to submit wrong stuff. Right? And then there's edit. So edit will edit a previous claim that I had. So it does scroll, as you can see.
I mean, my, maybe not important, but my comment there would be the edit you just take in.
Yeah.
You can just cancel it.
Yeah.
To pop up.
Yeah, so you're quite right. So because the impact is low, so that means it won't change any of your data if I press edit.
Is that left swipe a standard iOS action?
Yeah, it is, even on Android. So normally what you do with a list, if there's only one primary action, then you have it and you don't need to swipe and you just have it on the right.
Is that you're not swiping?
I'm swiping to, so the arrow means I can also click on it. So I can click on it, so I can click and open it. And then again, I have the same actions, submit, edit, and delete.
I'm just wondering how intuitive that is.
Yeah.
Because it's obvious that you can click the arrow, but is it obvious that you can swipe it?
It's not that obvious, but then this is why there's a secondary way to do the same thing. So I can open it and I can do the same thing. So in this way, we haven't lost any users because they can still do what they want to do. And here we have filters. I can decide to see only approved things and it will update. I can see all. And then the other cool thing is pull to refresh. Oh, sorry. So pull to refresh, I can do this, and then it will check for all my latest claims.
Very nice.
So I could actually go online and submit a claim, and then I'll refresh, and then it will show on the side. Same way, I will go to approvals and approve a claim, and okay, that's too much money. Okay, so approve again. It gives me a model to make sure that I'm happy with what I'm doing. Or if I reject, there's the reason. Okay, so I'm gonna click approve. Okay, and then the other thing about important actions is that you have to tell the user that you've done it after it's completed. Okay, and then it disappeared. If I try and refresh again, it's not there. So now, here's the interesting thing. So I just approved the claim and it doesn't show here. Design, but then one way to compensate for it is the pull to refresh again. And it didn't work. Wow. Okay, anyway, it was supposed to show. Oh, wait, I know why it doesn't show. Never mind. It's because I'm looking at, this is my own history. I should actually go on my approvals and show everything. Yeah. Now it shows, this is the one I just approved. And then now if I try and swipe here, there's no actions because it's already approved. The other thing which, what did I want to mention? It was so important. Okay, I forgot. So things like your profile, again, they're quite hidden because you wouldn't go to the app to check out your profile. And
yeah, especially in enterprise apps.
Yeah.
The profiles, it's Facebook you want to add.
Yeah. And then remember the note about the header buttons. So now, since I have a list of vehicles, it makes sense to have a plus button at the end to add a new vehicle. So if I click on that, then I can add my new vehicle and it will show up. Then again, there's a pull to refresh. And then with cards, normally you put the action below. So this is an edit. I can change my car. So just want to show you how it looks like when I submit a claim. Okay. So let me just submit the one which I had done before. Okay, so everything is interactive. So as I change, it will change my total here. And then we have a couple of actions. So I can update and not submit the claim, or I can just submit the claim. So if I update, it means I'm going to save it. Okay, claim saved. So now if I go to my history, it now changed to 90 because it was 100. Right. So again, let me create a new claim. Okay. So my cost is 100. I don't know what to write here. Stuff. Okay, and then if I click submit, then again, sometimes with important actions, you need to show what exactly you're doing. So this is what I'm going to submit to my manager. So I click submit and claim submitted. And in the background, it's sending me mails and all that stuff. But what I want to show you now is that if I now refresh here, I should be able to see what I just submitted. How much was it? Oh, it's already there. Okay. And again, it doesn't have any actions on it. To show you what it's doing in the background. Which I guess it isn't. Oh, my time is behind. I thought I still had some time. Okay.
If you guys want to run over, it's fine.
Okay. So, thank you. This is my email as this is when I approved earlier, and then this is now when I just submitted. So since it's using a central API, everything still happens, or as if I'm doing it from the back office.
It's not HTTPS because you're on tape, right?
Yeah, yeah. So basically it's saying that if I go here, then I can see the same claim. The server is quite slow. Okay, my phone is saying that it's 9:41. Just
We can speed it up. We provide sliding files.
yeah. So basically,
What UI library are you using here?
What?
UI library.
This is Angular material. It's quite good for desktop, but not too good for mobile. So as you can see, this is like a direct mirror of the same information. But now I just want to show you sort of validation of the pull to refresh. So I'm going to create a new claim from this side. Okay, I'll create a travel claim.
Just a web version of the same.
Yeah.
Using a different style sheet.
What's that?
It's just using a different style sheet.
No, it's completely different. It's just the API which is common. Okay, let's say I try. Yeah. Yeah, it's actually the best way to do it because otherwise you have an error on one side but then no error on the other side. It becomes hard to track. Okay, so I'm gonna submit this claim. And again, it's the same sort of design. It shows me this is what I'm submitting. And it's submitted, and in my claims history, I should be able to see it. It's this one. So I have it at the moment, but if I refresh, I should be able to see it. So I'm gonna do the pull to refresh again. And there it is. So there's my new claim, which I just created. So things like pull refresh, they help when you have more than one system because you wanna keep track. Okay, I think that's about it. I don't know if there are any other questions. Yeah, there's an Android version and it will look different. I don't have an emulator running, but I can show you for the Tour de France app. So I'll just go to the Play Store and show you the different screenshots.
Windows not.
I don't know about Windows.
It's coming along. Some
It's
issues.
tricky.
Yeah,
So there's not that many users using it.
true. Yeah, and the whole transition to universal Windows platform
Oh, it's
from Windows 8 to
Oh yeah. Which one am I doing? Okay. Okay. So, okay, same code base for this app. But if we look at the screenshots, you'll see that the tabs are above, right?
Does it also still have the swipe?
Yeah, yeah. So you can do it on Android as well.
So this is just using the moustache.
And on this side,
Putting the tab.
oh, yeah, what's going on? Yeah.
So that's using like a subheader. It's only one of the tabs.
used to be.
Yes, something like that.
That's like a vote.
Why it's just showing? Oh, I know why. Okay, let me.
Maybe it's between iPhone and iPad.
Hopefully, I still have pictures of it. Or do I? Or I could just run the app and then show you if it still works. Okay. Okay, the hub. So basically, the main difference would be the tabs being at the top or at the bottom.
Did you do that just because Android is more prominent at the top? Or what's the reason behind
Yeah, so it's better to have a more native feel. So if you make a native Android app, it will have tabs at the top.
it?
Yeah.
Is your web interface responsive?
Yes.
Should we use that as
Man,
within the mobile app as the interface?
Because it's too heavy for mobile. Yeah. So that's why they were asking about scrolling, because you scroll and then it will just.
You want to push more like
Sheesh, I don't know if this is still
Wait, should it be running?
cycle.atajo.
analytics.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm sure you guys trust me. I think, I'm not sure how iTunes work, but it shows only a couple of the screenshots. Yeah. I don't know if this will. No. I don't think this is gonna work. Oh, it does. Wow. Thanks, Warren. Okay, so here, these are the tabs. So that's the only difference. And the other thing about iOS, normally you will have your primary color of the tab being a lightish gray. And when it's active, then you use the primary color of the app. So now it's a bit of a navish blue sort of gray color. So that's what we use when a tab is active. So you'll see when this one is active, it will have the same color as here. And normally on Android, you'll have the tabs being the same color as the header. So yeah, those are the, okay, this is how it looks like on an iPad. So yeah. And with Atajo-UI, you basically tell it that for this platform, use this HTML file. So you can target. Yeah, normally it's combined, but then for certain cases like tabs, you'll then use different files. I can quickly show you how it works. Maybe. App. So if you, let me quickly do this. Okay, so if you've used Angular, you know that you normally set up your states for navigation. So what I do is that I say for the tab state, which is where my tabs are, I say if it's iOS, use this file, otherwise use this file. Just make it big. So this is how you can choose which HTML files you use. But normally if you just put in one file, you'll use the same file for both platforms. So basically that's how you do it. And if you look at my HTML files, tabs, and these are the two files. Tabs for Android and others, and tabs iOS for iOS.
When you start the app, does it load all the content of all the tabs, or when you click on it, does it load the content?
Yeah, so it will depend on how you set up your states. If you look at we have to give this otherwise condition. So it's basically an initialization. So you say that it starts with this tab or with this state, and then it will load the files for that state. So if I said start with tabs, then it will start by loading tabs. Otherwise, so for this one, it starts by loading the login screen, and then once you log in, you'll then just navigate to my login. On successful login, I say go to the create tab, which is where I create my claims. So it took me straight to that page. So yeah. So yeah, that's how you do platform identification or targeting. And the last thing I'll show you is just to see how the files are set up. So this is all the SCSS files, which will be generated to one big CSS file. Trying to find where we do targeting. So the question about the platform. So there will be a class for iOS, and there will be a class for Android somewhere. And basically, when you use Cordova, once an app is created, it will automatically inject the correct CSS file. And then by default, then it will use the correct styling. Okay. Any more questions? Going once. Okay, cool. Okay, guys, thanks for coming through. That's it.
Just want to know what commuters are.
What?
Commuters. Second slide. One of those circles at the top. Commuter, human commuter interface.
I saw it as a spelling mistake.
Spelling mistake.
They.
I didn't see it. I don't know what to check. Okay.
But don't worry, I've got on my list of stuff to research. I want to know more about these things.